I think it's time for us to get started.
Absolutely.
Um, I see one person's hand raised up, Ellie Pierce. Is there something urgent we need to discuss, Ellie? Okay, it's down. Um, Hello, everyone, and I want to thank you so much for attending the online launch, the official online launch of Do More Good, which, as of this week, by the way, is on Amazon's top new release list. It's actually #1 in the volunteer work category. So, Neil, we have to start with incredible congratulations. That is no small feat. As a special thanks for everyone that's participating today, we're actually going to give away 3 signed copies of Do More Good and 1 signed copy of His Holiness the Dalai Lama's Little Book of Wisdom. So we're going to pick winners later this week or tomorrow, and they'll be announced on Friday. And we're also going to send everyone, all of our participants, a link to the entire program on Friday so that people can watch it again. Just a brief note on logistics. We're going to take very much a coffee talk approach to our time today. It's going to be very conversational with an emphasis on personal reflections, but not just from the panelists and Neil, but from the audience as well. So after our panelists have offered their brief thoughts, we're going to open things up for questions. So if you hear something that intrigues you or triggers an emotion, please use comments to type your question, and we're going to make every effort to address all the questions that come in. Okay, so let's get started. I'll start with my favorite panelist of all, me, to just simply note that I wanted to just describe very briefly why I'm here. Neil is a good friend, but the reason that I'm here is simply because I believe that humankind is really at a sort of a historic turning point. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that we're really in the midst of a kind of a chrysalis process right now, and we're at that confusing and amorphous stage where it feels like we're no longer the caterpillar we once were, but we're also not yet the butterfly that we might come. And the challenge at this very vulnerable point is that we're only able to make sense of all the craziness around us through the limited understanding of the caterpillar. And my belief is that if we don't figure out a way to embrace our butterfly potential, we're going to fail at this transformation. And we have a chance of sliding backwards. And to me, I've been excited after reading Do More Good because I think it's filled with stories of that butterfly potential. So I just wanted to offer with that sort of brief perspective and frame of reference. And Neil, I think most importantly, we should hand it off to you before we hear our panelists, because I'm sure everyone is eager to hear the most important question, which is what inspired you to write this book, especially at this time?
Thank you, Bill. Thank you very much. I think other than me speaking, I'm glad the perspective I just heard from you. I'm assuming and hoping that I will hear 7 or 8 different perspectives. That is also will be very enlightening for me, and I'm sure for all the listeners. I'm extremely grateful to have all of you to join me tonight. The panelists, everyone who registered, almost 250 people. I'm grateful for the people that has really energized me and motivated me to get this done. So before I answer your question, I think I have to mention some names, like anything else in life I've done. There are heroes behind the scene. Without that, the book will not be possible. I mentioned many of them in the acknowledgement section, but I must mention some names right now before even I say why I wrote this book. And one of the individuals is Matt Westbrook. He's a friend of mine for almost 40 years. When I first thought about writing it, he's the first person, or almost the first person I talked to. He's a copy editor of the book. There is Stephen Krolak, who is the editor. I have a research assistant, Walter Heiser, my literary agent, Michelle Martin, of course, a publisher, Post Hill Press, and distributor, Simon & Schuster. And you can imagine the gratitude I have that Holiness wrote the foreword for the book. It's a tremendous, I'm humble, I'm grateful. I'm also grateful that many world leaders from private sector, political spectrum, and social sector read the book manuscript and endorsed the book. And you started by talking about Amazon, which I have, of course, I'm super joyed and blessed that people have purchased the book. People are leaving comments on the book. Coming back to your question on why I wrote the book, I don't think the way I would phrase this, Bill, I thought about it before, but this is as I think about it, I see it in four pillars. The first one is my childhood shaped my belief system. And I grew up in a home where there are limited resources, but unlimited empathy. I remember very vividly my mother would save Indian coins and rupees in a talcum powder can for relatives who are less, they had less than we did. I remember my father will invite young men from our neighborhood to join our family vacation because he believed in rehabilitation. These young men either had an alcohol issue or maybe some other kind of addiction issue. So I think the childhood was shaped by a fact that generosity doesn't come from abundance. Generosity comes from empathy. So that kind of shaped my early childhood belief system. The second pillar, Bill, I think I would say my professional life. As you may know a little bit more, I have worked in private sector. I worked in nonprofit, international development. I was also a US government contractor with a top secret clearance, and so on. What I have seen when private sector, social sector, and government works together in cohesion, we can address numerous challenges in our country and abroad. That also played in my part or the motivation of writing the book. The third pillar is, of course, the people I met. Some of them are famous, most of them are not. And one simple truth was that, which was fundamental belief system that I was convinced that each of us have the power to make a difference. So that was birth of Do More Good. But there's one more pillar which was not in my original plan. I think around the middle of the process, something came to my mind. I realized many people, as I was going through this journey in my life, nothing to do with the book, have asked me this question: how can I help? As a fundamental basic, I believe everyone wants to do something. We all are motivated to do something, whatever we can. And this question came to me: what can I do to help without spending a lot of my time and research and a lot of spend money? So that brings to the resource section of the book, which is there. You can look it up. After every chapter, we have included, and that is varies from whether you're concerned about child poverty to environmental issue. It's a wide spectrum of organization that we deliberately included. So the idea behind it is the book not just should be a source of motivation and inspiration, but it should allow people to act on it. So those are the four pillars, and I hope the book does exactly that.
Lovely, Neil. And we're going to circle back with some questions for you, but I wanted to start our panel discussion with Sean Bartlett. And Sean, everybody has a past, and your past even included a brief period of time when you were a young lad serving as an intern under Neil. Since then, you've been a former deputy assistant secretary at the Department of State. So you're the perfect person to kick off the conversation. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Bill, thank you. And Neil, congratulations on the book. And thanks for asking me to be a part of this. Indeed, I'd go a step further. It wasn't an internship. It was actually my first paying job in development. So I felt very excited at 23 years old to be getting a paycheck as I was finishing my master's degree in ethics and peace. So ethics and peace, I hope that degree might connote that I really do care about doing more good in the world. And that's why I was drawn to work for Neil. And that's why I was drawn to this book. And it's not just the kind of altruistic reasons for doing good. I'm also a political animal. And as a political animal, I was really drawn to part three of the book, the ACT piece, Neil, that you were just talking about. And I was especially drawn to the section about President Clinton because growing up, he was a really great example, I think, as like a young person in America about what the presidency could be. But then later, and much more relevant to my career, which again began with Neil, his creation of the Clinton Foundation and the Clinton Global Initiative put these ideas and theories into action. And I was so fortunate not just to work at SNV, the Netherlands Development Organization with Neil, but I benefited directly from the Clintons' not just generosity, but curiosity about the world and what America could do to literally do good. And I had the great honor of working for a nonprofit called the Global Alliance for Clean Cook Stoves, which was a direct outgrowth of the Clinton Global Initiative, championed very much by both Bill and Hillary Clinton. And Neil, I think the other thing I would say is by explaining President Clinton's explainer in chief abilities, I would really point people to that because despite my passion for development and foreign affairs and politics, I'm a communicator by trade. That's my profession. And no one did it like President Clinton. You know, putting good out there, talking about counteracting the bad. He broke things down and made it easy to kind of understand the issue and empathize with other people. So, to your point, Neil, that you were just making, the way it ends with some kind of tools and examples that people can also put into the world. Again, we're not all going to be President Clintons, but it's like a great example of how to conduct yourself in the world, and I think how to talk to others and build bridges from the smallest of issues to the largest of issues. So thanks again for having me, and I'm glad to be a part of this. Congrats again.
Thank you so much, Sean, for your thoughts. And though she would never admit it, I think we would all agree that one of the most important people on this call is Sanjukta Chatterjee, an unsung hero because she's an educator, an humble educator that serves in Fairfax County Public Schools. Sanjukta, welcome, and please share your thoughts.
Sure. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege to participate in this discussion. And when Neil asked me to be a part of this, it was almost a no-brainer. And initially, I was a little skeptical because the theme is heavy. So I was just like, okay, I'm not sure what I'm walking into. But this book, it really changed my perspective on how easy it is to read it. It is structurally simple, it's flowing conversations, and I was drawn to it's replete with personalities, celebrities, but I was drawn to more the common stories, as it were. I mean, I don't want to put anyone down by saying common, but more people like Mr. Usri, who saw two girls sleeping under a car and then decided to build a home for them. And as I was reading it, I realized that as an educator, what I do kind of dovetails in with Neil's perspective. I'm an educator in the alternative stream of education in Fairfax County. Now, the moment I say alternative, the reaction I get from everybody is, oh, so you teach the bad kids that no one wants in class. True, a large percentage of our kids come from JDC, but I think just to classify them as bad is somewhat of an injustice and a misnomer, because a lot of these kids come from broken or blended households. Some of them are refugees who have come into this country and have supported themselves right through their education. About 2 nights ago, we graduated a kid who was 21 years old, refugee from Somalia, who has no family to speak of, as it were. So I feel that our school actually gives them a second chance. A phrase that resonates with me from the book is empathy from a position of comfort. And I just felt that how many of us appease our consciences by just clicking on the token donation button, and then we're like, okay, I've done what I need to do. And then this book, I think, tells us that you need to go a little beyond that. I like the fact that it does not pontificate, but it exhorts people that this is what you can do. And the handy list of references at the end of each chapter tells a layman like me that this is where I can get started. These are the resources available to me, and this is where I can pick up the threads of what I want to do. I'm looking at retiring next year, and this is definitely a handy book for me because this will tell me, okay, What do I need to do? I know I'm going to be in education. I know I want to be in adult ed and helping adults, get an education, move on in life. I think that's very important, especially in our current world. And I'm looking forward to doing that. So
Lovely.
and kudos, Neil. This was a book well written. Yes, easy to read.
Yikes, when you started to talk about the structure of the book, I was afraid there would be a quiz.
No. It's an easy quiz, even if it were. Every chapter is kind of structured similarly.
Lovely.
So yeah.
Now we're going to go on to Dr. Mamta Patel Nagaraja, and after 2 decades of experience of service to NASA, Dr. Nagaraja, Mamta, is an independent spaceflight leader, and she's the founder of her own company, Vyoma Science and Engineering. So, Mamta, please share your thoughts.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me today. I probably on this call am the one who knows Neil for the shortest amount of time, and I'll tell you why. I met Neil a few months ago online through LinkedIn because my entire world, my career, something that had been intertwined with my own identity, went sideways due to what is happening in our country right now. I am a glass half full kind of gal, but my belief in people was at its all-time low on March 10th when I received my RIF notice from the federal government. And then somebody named Neil reached out to me, and I was skeptical because you always got to be a little skeptical when you meet people online. And I don't know that I was ready to talk about doing good because I did not believe in the good of people in that moment. But he persisted. And he contacted me and he waited patiently. And it gave me the time and the space to come back to who I was. And I did that because a book arrived in my mailbox and I actually sat down with it. And it reminded me instantly that there's more good than there is bad. So, Neil, thank you for that reminder, helping to pull me out of my low. But I would be the very worst representative of spaceflight if I didn't point out my favorite chapter, and that's on John Glenn, a hero not just in space, but for this nation. And I was stunned to see a picture of you and John Glenn, one of the greatest heroes that our nation has ever had. Thank you for sending me the book, for allowing me to come back to who I was, and letting me read it.
May I suggest, Mamta, you might have a bright future in public speaking. Just a thought. So thank you so much. Suzanne Ellers, boy, Suzanne, you are the CEO and Executive Director of USA for UNHCR, the UN High Commission on Refugees. And I think we would all agree you have your hands full. And I'm particularly grateful for your time because, Suzanne, I know you're up to your earlobes in very important work right now. So I know also you're going to have to leave us shortly. So I want to be sure that we get to you. Please do tell us what's on your mind.
Thank you, Bill, for that generous introduction. And hello, everyone. My time is no more precious than anyone, except that I'm at a family graduation party. And so there's a bunch of young people downstairs who I am going to implore to do more good in the world. And so I didn't want to miss tonight, though. So I appreciate the audience's patience with me and flexibility as I join you for just a few minutes. I am currently working on refugee issues, before that on girls' education under the direction of Malala Yousafzai, who's featured in the book. And before that, working on women's health and access to family planning. So a long time career in really critical issues of global development. Neil and I, having only recently met in the last maybe year or so in my work around forced displacement. And Neil has been already a mentor. Mamta, a lot of your words about Neil resonated with me. A mentor, a connector, somebody who is asking tough questions, but in a curious and empathetic way that have really challenged me to push the work harder to make more impact in the world for those most in need. I was reading, I hate to brag for those of you who don't have your copy yet, but for those of us who do, the book is called Do More Good, Inspiring Lessons from Extraordinary People. And what I already told my fellow panelists is what I love most about it is that the lessons are quite ordinary. They're quite accessible for us humans in the world. Really beautiful structure that's easy to follow. Pick it up at night, read one person's story, maybe someone you've heard of, maybe someone you haven't. And the inspiration that comes from that brief encounter with this book is really quite powerful. We cannot believe that sort of doing good is reserved only for the exceptional among us. So everyone on this call, and I see that there's 128 of us, we are all equally capable of doing more good in the world. And boy, do we need it right now. The story that I'm going to lift up very quickly is that of Kevin Bacon, because believe it or not, many years ago, Kevin Bacon had a dog that apparently looked a lot like my dog. And so when I would go to New York City to visit my mother-in-law and I would take Bria for a walk, innumerable people would ask me, "Oh, you're taking Kevin's dog for a walk." And I said, "No, this is Bria from DC." But the 6 degrees of separation, and of course, Kevin's efforts around 6degrees.org really kind of rang true for me in that moment. And what I love in that piece, Neil, you and I have talked about this, is a positive version of peer pressure. I know a lot about peer pressure as the mother of teenage girls, and Kevin, I think in his work is flipping that on the script. And how do we pressure and nudge those around us to, as we've heard already tonight, to do a little more than just click the donate button, to really stand up and amplify our voices in support of important work and social justice. So I want to thank Neil for inviting me to be a part of this really exemplary crowd tonight. I want to congratulate you on the book, because for anyone who's written one, and I am not one of those people, they are a labor of love. And this is a labor of a really important piece of love that will do its own version of good in the world. So I will end my remarks there, and thanks so much.
And thank you very much for your time. As a father of two 20-something women, I just want to let you know it does not get any easier. um, Thank you so much, Suzanne, and please do step off when you need. Neha Kundagrami is an experienced banker who's actually risen to the rank of product owner at my bank, Capital One. Neha, we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, of course. It's really stressful coming after such incredible people. It's stressful coming after the CEO of UNH, who's actually helping refugees, to say, "Hey, I work at a bank." But I'll do my best. It's also hard for me to call Neil Kaku anything other than Neil Kaku. He's been a father figure my entire life, so forgive me for the addendum, but I just have to. But I was really touched when Neil Kaku reached out and asked if I wanted to speak at this, and also when he sent me a copy of his book. I just had a few thoughts, and none of this is rehearsed. It's just like what I wanted to speak to. But something that the book really made me feel was that one of the I truly believe one of the great shortcomings of humanity be found in like the self-centered nature in which we experience the world. Given the propensity for the terrible twos of childhood, perhaps one can assume that this is the innate tendency for all of humanity, and the only reason we ever really become different is because of the patient teaching and coaching of our elders. But regardless of the conversation of nature versus nurture, it is mostly true that we often experience the world by centering the narrative on ourselves. The rampant individualism that we find in the West does not help this at all. The idea that the world was ever saved by individuals and never by the collective. It's MLK Jr. that we learn about in school, not the Black Panthers. Even our superheroes, when we talk about them saving the world, they've only ever operated in silos. Superman does not have a community. It's just him flying up there wearing his underwear over his pants. We've also all been able to witness the horrors that this innate level of self-centeredness can cause on this world. Much of the problems that we are currently facing, the rise of fascism, the environmental crises, the assault on human sovereignty, and the eroding of human rights, can somewhat be tied back to this self-centered narrative in the hands of greedy individuals who lack empathy. But what we don't ever speak of is how crippling that self-centered narrative is for those who want to help. To believe that history is full of individuals who are strong enough to single-handedly disrupt systems is a daunting ask for anyone who might be worried that they might not be strong enough to save the world. So as we elevate these stories of revolutionaries and the overt revolts in our recollection of history, we inherently also diminish and erase the almost equivalent value provided by passive and quiet resistance. You even see this level of self-centered just viewpoints arise in how we position ourselves in our own narrative. As anyone who's ever raised teenagers are quite familiar with, humanity often assumes that our battles are uniquely our own, that our stories are individual as opposed to being part of a shared collective. As if no one in history has ever been through the same experience we're seeing right now, or anything that we've been to, that we're experiencing at the moment. The truth is really far from this, right? The problems we're facing right now are not news, nor do these problems end with us. This is something that our forefathers have been fighting for millennia, and it will remain something that our children will face for centuries to come. One could argue, in fact, that we're just playing a part in a story that is as old as time and dancing to a rhythm older than history itself. And it is in here and where I think the book Do More Good thrives. By centering on the actionable everyday of the collective, it reminds us that resistance does not need to be all-consuming to be valuable. Even the passive, everyday choices, everyday moments of kindness are steps forward in the right direction. And by anchoring on stories from others, we are reminded that this struggle is not unique. What we're facing right now in the world is not unique. We are not unique, and we are part of a narrative that has existed far before we were born and will continue to do so far after we're gone. I was particularly struck by the story of Malala, who spoke up even when she knew it might cost her her life, who kept publishing the need for women to have access to education even when she knew it would spur a manhunt, and who stepped forward on that bus when someone holding a gun said that if she didn't, everyone would die. Her impact was revolutionary, her bravery unfathomable, just for her to have a chance to use her voice, a voice many of us already have and squander, and a voice we can use to make a difference. Impact doesn't need to be revolutionary in order to be valuable. And unlike Superman, we can save the world without needing to wear our underwear on top of our pants.
As I hear you speak, Neha, I keep hearing an echo in my head of boomer. Like I feel like a very old man. I think it's amazing, and I wonder if you might have a mic that you can drop on camera. That was beautifully,
Switch.
beautifully said. I really appreciate that. Uh, Dr. Nandita Dasgupta teaches economics at the University of Maryland in Baltimore County, and she's a very integral part of the community of Maryland where Neil actually resides. And Dr. Dasgupta, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Tolliver. I'm really very honored to come here. I'm really enlightened by the other speakers who spoke here. And I have read the book twice in order to, I mean, it's such a deep reading. It is a book that covers 30 amazing personalities that have touched the life of Neil. And it starts from his parents and ends with his son. So it is indeed a bridge. It is bridging a gap between two generations. This book itself is bridging the gap. It weaves around the innate qualities, our universal qualities and virtues that make our life worth living. It is the story of different people, but at the end of the day, it is making us aware of the different qualities that will make this such a disturbed world today. It could bring in peace through our patience, through our civility, through our action. While reading the book, I felt that one of the overarching themes of this book was unity amidst diversity. This was one of the themes amongst many others. There were many other very powerful themes, but one of the themes was this theme. And while reading the book, I felt that Neil is so fortunate that he could meet so many people, so many, what should I say, illuminaries in his life. I happen to know two of them. One is Neil's son, Ryan, whom I saw grow up to a very promising and a very wonderful human being. And the other person that I know from our community is Mr. Ashok Mutayed. And Neil has especially emphasized on his mentorship qualities He is indeed a community leader. He is indeed a mentor of the community and beyond. And this is because of certain qualities that he bears, including his generosity, his leadership, wisdom, etc., his discipline. While I was thinking about this person, whom I know in our community as a community leader, and Neil has covered him in chapter 3. When I went to chapter 26, that is when I read about Ross Perot, I found that amidst huge diversity, unfathomable diversity, there are some elements of unity. And those elements of unity that I found are, both of them are astute negotiators, immensely enterprising businessmen, have strong belief in everyday man, like both believe in good people with deep conscience, and they are both revered community leaders, though at different times, different environments, and different perspectives. And these are the people who bridge the gap, who bring in this very diverse world the element of unity. And this book we must read repeatedly in order to fathom its value, because this is a very well written book with immense nuggets of simple values. Like there, one of the speakers spoke about extraordinary. We common people, through our extraordinary qualities, can become extraordinary people to contribute to the world. And some of them here are those people who have contributed to the world, not because they are some famous world leaders, but because they are people like us, but who have imbibed consciously those values that make them inspiring and worth looking up to. And with this, I would thank you, Mr. Tolliver, for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. And please, Bill, I'm going to repeat something I just see here from Jeff Atwood in all caps. I love economists. Go. And if I may speak before I hand the baton over to Alvin, I think it's good economics. If you're going to read the book twice, please make sure to buy 2 copies, right, Neil? That's something we've got to keep in mind. Uh, Alvin, you are a 22-year veteran of the armed service, and today you're the director of procurement of AstraZeneca. I would love to hear your thoughts.
Thank you very much, Bill. Hello, everyone. And Neil, thank you for having me in this very important moment. I had the pleasure of meeting Neil through his son, Ryan, who I had the pleasure of working with for several years. And I was very impressed with Ryan from the beginning. And it was not until I finished reading this book that I understand the background of this fantastic young man that I had the honor of working with. All the pieces came together. So let me speak a little bit about the book. And just like my other colleagues, I found very uplifting, especially in today's environment where negativity seems all too common. It is refreshing to read about these extraordinary individuals that he showcased, often making great sacrifices for the good of others. And although it may not have been Neil's explicit intent, uh, one cannot help but to see the striking contrast uh, between this individual's selflessness and the pervasive self-serving nature of many public figures today. And there's a question that stayed with me long after I finished the book, and that is, will I have had the same strength and courage and determination as these individuals had I been in this similar situation? And I personally feel there's a great need for more individuals who embody these commendable traits that we saw in the book. And I asked myself, could that be us, right? And I think the book places an implicit challenge on us to bring more altruism into our lives and also inspire us to step out of our comfort zone and make a positive impact, no matter how small. And speaking about retirement, Sanjukta, you talk about next year. I have 56 days to go, and it's not like I'm counting, but you're talking about great timing of getting this book in my hands so close to my retirement. and I am inspired to take immediate, tangible actions. And the book offers many practical suggestions, particularly in the section titled How You Can Use Empathy Now. And besides other things that I may do, I intend on keeping this list readily accessible to serve me as a reminder on how I can implement this idea into my daily life.
Good grief. Thank you so much. I'm the first in my lineage to have not done 20 years in the military, so I'm especially honored to hear your words. Finally, I'm pleased to introduce Dr. AJ Nwoga, a very distinguished financial expert. She's risen to Senior Vice President at M&T Bank. And AJ is passionate about building up her community and serves on the boards of several nonprofits. We'd love to have your closing thoughts, Dr. Nwoga.
Thank you very much for having me, Neil. And the challenging thing about going last is everyone says all the good stuff, and now you got to figure out how to make it up. So it's really a tough act to follow everyone. But I will say this. I met Neil through a program that I ran for my county about a couple of years ago, and somehow we've stayed in touch. And the one thing about Neil is he is just a good human being in and out in this quiet, kind persistence where he has a way of staying in touch and keeping in touch, which I really appreciate so much about him. So when you look at the title of this book, and I'll say how it spoke to me personally, it does say inspiring lessons from extraordinary people. And oftentimes when we think of extraordinary people, we think about famous people, wealthy people, people who have done things that everybody knows. But as I read this book, I realized that what made them extraordinary was not the wealth they had or the positions they held, but it was just the level of kindness and empathy they showed to the world when it was needed the most. That is what stood out to me. I don't know a lot of the figures in this book, but I remember every act of kindness, how they acted when it was necessary for them to do so, how they looked at their fellow human being and felt a need to do something to make a difference, and how the difference they made really touched and made other people's lives better. And somehow, in all of that, the simplicity of the act, building a home for someone, feeding someone, just asking someone how they're doing, how that can make a significant impact in people's lives. And so you think about me and Neil, we're so different. I'm Black from Nigeria, immigrated to the US, and I'm Catholic. We may not even share the same background, but I'll tell you in this book, when I read this book, I forgot about being Black. I forgot about being from Nigeria. It didn't even matter to me what my faith was. What I saw was humans reaching out to humans and touching other humans in a way that only humans could do, irrespective of who you are, where you come from, how you affiliate, what your religion is. That in the grand scheme of things, what makes us different doesn't even matter. What makes us unique is just the ability to reach out and understand each other. The book is a simple read, it's easy to read. When I got this book, I couldn't put it down. I read this book in a day. And what I love about the book is that anyone can do so much good. You don't need to be rich. You don't need to be famous. You don't need to be educated. Mother Teresa was not the most educated person. You don't need to have a ton of money. What you really need is just that simple desire to help the person that's right next to you. Could be your neighbor, it could be someone in your child's school, it could be someone at work. There is so much opportunity for each and every one of us to do good. And if you truly don't know where to begin, this book offers you simple tools and resources that can help you begin that process of doing good. And you can never do enough good. There's always more good that you can do, which often doesn't involve you giving out so much money, especially if you don't have it. So, Neil, I want to thank you for gifting this world a book that allows us to reconnect with our humanity at a time when we've almost lost it, that allows us to understand that we are still united as a time when we think about our divisiveness and all we hear is negativity and divisiveness. You are truly bridging that gap of bringing us back to our core of who we are and how we can make a difference. So, thank you.
Boy, what a close. I love what you just said, Dr. Nwoga, because to me, I think that's the point of everything is that we are so caught up in that 7.4% that distinguish us from one another, and we're missing the profound interconnectedness. If I were to, I think if we were to restart, instead of writing a declaration of independence, I think we might consider a declaration of interdependence. So Thank you so much for those lovely words. And Neil, for gosh sake, I hope you are feeling appropriately proud and humble at the same time. We have 5 or 6 minutes. After this beautiful panel discussion, we have 5 or 6 minutes to just throw a few questions around, and I have three that have come up on our screens. And I just wanted to start, Neil, to throw to you. If I could ask a question from Michigan, Kristen LeBron, founder of Be Global by Design, asks the same a central theme. A lot of the people that you talk about in the book could be considered yet extraordinary, and yet I think your advice and steps apply very much to us ordinary people as well. Please share a little bit about how ordinary people can make decisions or give back in extraordinary ways.
Thank you, Bill. I think humble will be an understatement, but I will try to answer it. It's the question you just mentioned. I know some of the speakers addressed it, and that is one of the main reasons. I think it came up again and again. One of the main reasons that motivated me to write the book, that everyone, us, you, speakers, audience, can do something. What I have done, so that's my first comment. In terms of more specifically, what I have developed is not in the book, but something which helps me to remember. I gave it a name. I call it GEMS, GEMSS. Christine, I will explain what do I mean by that. It's something helps me to put some context in this conversation. So when I say G, I mean getting involved. For me, G is getting involved. That means you are an engaged citizen. And when I say engaged citizen, I'm not talking about just voting every 2 years or 4 years. I'm talking about getting involved in the community, in your own neighborhood. Let your voice heard. This is not even giving money. Make sure you write, you speak, you notify your congressman and woman what you believe in. I'll give you one example. There is an app I mentioned in the books called 5 Calls, like number 5, CALLS. And if you have the app on the phone, you press the app, 5 of your congressmen and women will know where you stand on any issue. So again, that's to me is G, getting involved. Number 2 is E stands for empowerment. Empower others. And this is what I mean by mentorship. So there's a chapter I dedicated in the book, The Power of Mentorship. And I've received mentorship when I was very young. And mentorship doesn't have to be somebody older. I receive mentorship. I'm also mentoring other people. And even if you don't have somebody in your own neighborhood, you can join Big Brothers, Big Sisters. You can join Obama Foundation. You can join the National Mentorship Society. So there are many ways to do that the book talks about. So that's GEM. AIM stands for micro philanthropy. I'm a big fan of micro philanthropy because every time before I heard the word philanthropy, we think about Bill Gates. And I said, no, I believe all the panelists, everybody listening today, everybody reading the book, we are all philanthropists. When I go to my gas station, I take my gas and I put 50 cents to St. Jude. I'm a micro philanthropist. And of course, you can do more, but that's the way my mindset is, that I'm doing my part, whatever my capacity is. I think AJ mentioned that a little while ago. And sure, you can give it to, you can sponsor a child, you can give it to Jose Andres' organization, World Central Kitchen, or other organization. But idea that we are all able to do something is important to me. The last 2 S is equally important. 1 S is showing up. And I heard it from some of the speakers, including, I think, AJ. I have found the profound satisfaction just for when people showed up for me and I showed up for somebody else. There's no money involved. Showing up for your friends when they are down, showing up for your colleague when they need your help, showing up for your neighbors. So for me, that S is very important. And the last one is another S, so GEMSS. I kind of call it start small. What I mean by that, Bill, and came from Christine. Christine, as I'm talking, and you might know this as well, I have friends, not one, many lost their job in the last 6 months. One of them actually as of yesterday. I have a dear friend who's taking care of her mother, trying to struggle with her mother and her job. So it's very hard to think about all these big things when we are so occupied, our day-to-day life. We are very busy. So I'm really emphasizing the small part. And that small part doesn't have to be a donation also. It can be just Be kind to somebody. Make sure you are intentional how you're behaving with somebody. So that's the way I kind of frame it, Christine, to make it more manageable and doable. And I don't see GEMS as a checklist. It's kind of a mindset. And I think that should help us, all of us, and I heard from speakers, should be able to part. And that's kind of my journey.
Lovely. I'm going to touch on a couple more questions here as we go, and then if people want to stay on, we can circle back to a couple. From Denver, Adam Mizell says your book discusses building bridges extensively, and as citizens, what can we do to help bridge the growing divisions in this country? I wonder if you might offer us a minute or so on that thought.
Adam, this is a topic very close to my heart. People who are close to me, they know I've been thinking about this topic quite a bit. And to the point, I started a column at a place called Patheos, P-A-T-H-E-O-S. I write monthly, and the name of my topic is Building Bridges. So it's very close to my heart. I will answer it, but I have a premise on this question that I have to admit, and people may or may not agree with me on this. And that basic premise, I believe that empathy is not a blue state value or a red state value or a purple state value. Empathy is an American value. It's in the DNA of Americans. I have traveled to Wyoming. I have traveled to many places in this country. And that's a core belief I'm standing on. So with that belief, I will give you a couple of thoughts to think about. One of them is we have to connect with people outside our comfort zone. We have to do that. We have to do that. Number two, we have to listen to perspective that we may not agree with. And I will quote somebody, I got to know her more recently. Her name is Carissa. She's with an organization called Listen First. I think she said something along the line that, Neil, disagreement is healthy. It brings innovation. And it stuck with me. I'm paraphrasing, but something along the line. So I think we have to hear other perspective, even if we disagree. So that's number two. Number three, I will say that organizations, particularly public organizations, must have voices of conservative as well as progressive. I think we need to have a balance so that we don't feel, part of the country doesn't feel that we are not listening to them. I'm a big believer of that balance and having the other perspective on the table so that we hear all perspective. And the fourth one, I think, is most critical that Adam's organization is doing, called Us United. And so we are not starting from scratch. It is a complex problem, Bill and Adam, obviously, but we are not starting from scratch because I have been looking into this as much as I can in the last 3 months, and I found Adam's organization, Us United. I found Listen First. I found Braver Angels. I found Convergence. So people who are interested in this topic of bringing some kind of unity in this country. I know Dr. Nandita Dasgupta talked about unity. We can always look them up and join some of this organization, but it must start at the grassroots level, with at the church, at the synagogue, at the temple. This conversation must happen, and we have to bridge those differences, that one community at a time.
Thank you. Sanjukta, could you offer some thoughts?
Yes, I was just going to tell Neil that I saw while I was reading the Ruth Bader Ginsburg chapter, she talks about the necessity of civil discourse. And I think that goes very well along with what he said, that the importance of reaching out to the other side, to understand the feeling of empathy, to understand what they're saying. But one of the other chapters also talks about the necessity of including youth, because I think a lot of the changes will come from involving the youth. If they are involved, we see kids growing up without prejudices. However, things change when they are in their 20s, 30s. So I think it's important to actually involve the youth in whatever conversations we need to have, because for me, I think that's where change starts. I think, yeah.
I'm gonna just take a little bit of host prerogative here for a minute, because I know some people might have to leave. So, but I would like to continue to keep this conversation going a bit, because I think it's very important. So, for those people that do have to leave, I just want to make this point. This book is hereby officially launched. Please be sure to pick up a copy and remember to recommend it to your friends and colleagues. And for goodness sake, if you're going to read it twice, please buy two books. With that said, I would like to jump back into some questions, and I'm going to ask two questions very quickly, one to the panel and one to Neil. Neil, first to you. You highlight the power of listening to one's inner calling through stories like Mother Teresa's and your son's personal journey. But today's world is full of distractions, especially from technology designed to consume our attention. How can younger generations stay connected to their deeper purpose? And that was from Kellogg Northwestern University in Chicago. Thank goodness our students are asking the right questions, and from Quinn Moore. And then for the panel, if you could just contemplate this question for a minute from one of the folks online who said, Perveen Chopra, she said, in the light of recent developments in the world, are you all hopeful that values like empathy and goodness that you talk about in your book will triumph? So I'll ask the panel to contemplate that for a moment, and we'll go back to you, Neil, about how younger generations can stay connected to their deeper purpose amidst all this noise.
That's a terrific question, Bill. And what's the name of the person? I said
Quinn Moore.
Quinn. Thank you, Quinn, because one of my motivation now, among many others, is to reach young people. And I am, whether to colleges, university, wherever I can go, I will talk to you and anybody I can possibly talk about. You're absolutely correct. We are living in a time with too much division, disruption, and digital divide. And the word I think I heard from the question, if I heard it correctly, you used the word purpose. So in a world we will live in, our attention is being attacked all the time. However, I believe, based on all the people I met, and this is not people on the book, but in East Africa, West Africa, Latin America, Asia, in some of the remotest part of the world, I am convinced in my core of my belief that we all have a purpose. We just don't realize this, and we have to have a purpose in life. And what I realize slowly, the purpose doesn't scream at you, it whispers at you. So since purpose whispers at us, if the noise is so much around us, we cannot hear it. So what I learned, how do I tone down the noise? And everybody has a different way of doing it, Quinn. It can be just a walk, making sure you're out of your social media for an hour or maybe 5 minutes. I think that is the time you get in touch with your purpose. That's number one. Number two, I will say, some people believe that introspection and this whole idea of reflection is very grown-up things. I don't believe it. I've been introspecting when I was very young. So I believe that introspection and reflection is equally important for young people. And the third one, which somebody I respect deeply, is a gentleman, is a professor at Jerusalem, Yuval Harari. He says something is one of his books that really struck me, that people who are controlling your attention, also controlling your mind. It really scared me very much. It's like an addiction. So basically what's happening, and you have seen movies and read books now, the way the structure is, we are addicted to social media and many things, and we are losing our ability to think and our conscience. So I think like any other addiction, I will say to Quinn and others that how do we, like any addiction, how we fight back? How do we come out of it as much as we can? And this is not an easy question, and I don't think I'm giving the best answer. I'm fully aware of it. I think this will take me more thinking, and I will hopefully come up with a better answer. But this what comes to my mind right now. And the last thing I will say, that don't let social media or anyone to develop your story. I write my story. We are all storytellers. So I think if we are living a reactive life by watching whatever we watch, by living in a silo of information, get your information from a reliable source, make sure we read the right information, and create your own story. That's kind of my immediate answer, Bill, on that one. But thank you, Quinn. It's a great question, and I'll give it more thought on this.
Lovely. So I'm going to go back to the panel now. If anybody'd like to weigh in on that question from Parveen Chopra, In light of recent developments in the world, are you still hopeful that values like empathy and goodness you talk about in your book will triumph? Sanjukta.
So I think empathy, I'm not sure if it will triumph, but I think if we take the time to walk in someone else's shoes, if we practice empathy or goodness even quietly, I think it will make a difference. As Neil said, there's a lot of noise in the world. Empathy and goodness might be drowned out. However, if we each keep practicing in our own little way, big way, however, I think at some point in time, something will make a difference. And there's always hope. We can always hope for that.
Thank you. Dr. Nwaga, did I see your hand up?
Yes, you did. I do want to say before I answer the question, I want to piggyback on something the last question you asked before this. The content you see on social media is a choice. And I know oftentimes it feels as if we feel compelled to watch what is thrown at us on social media. We are at an age where we can no longer separate social media from everyday life. It has now become a part of who we are as people. People are always, especially the younger generation, they thrive on social media. But even in social media, there's really good content if you look for it. There are still people that are doing so much good in this world. The challenging thing is they have to dig a little bit deeper to find it because the negative news is the first thing you see when you get on social media. So we cannot. It is, and we my generation was raised to build connections person to person. Unfortunately, my kids don't have the privilege that I had of actually making real friends and walking down the street and playing with people. And now they stay and, they play video games and they do what they do on video game is what we did person to person growing up. Right. So, and it's difficult to recreate that experience that I had. I doubt that they can ever have the same experience that I had growing up. I doubt that we can recreate that given where the world is going. But what I do is urge them to seek out the good content on social media because if you look for it, you will find it. In response to the other question about empathy, I strongly believe that empathy will thrive, will triumph, because there are more people doing good in this world than there are bad people. And I know sometimes it's harder to see because, again, what we are surrounded by is negativity and divisiveness. But think about the billions of people in the world. Think about how much good that truly happens, even in the very community where you live. There are more people that are doing good. Unfortunately, we never get to hear about it, but there's way more good in this world than evil. But however, evil is louder, evil is more visible, evil makes the news. All we hear about is evil, evil, evil. But believe you me when I say it, there are more people doing good in this world than evil. And you know how I know? Because when you look at your own personal group of friends, when you look at the people you surround yourself with, I bet you that you know more good people than bad people. So I do believe that good will always triumph over evil. However, good does not happen in isolation. We have a responsibility to create the good that we are looking for. So, if each one of us will take it upon ourselves to be the best version of ourselves to those around us, that is how we promulgate good around the world.
Lovely. Dr. Das Gupta, I would love to hear your thoughts, but I'll cut you off if you call me Mr. Tolliver.
Yeah, regarding okay, Bill, regarding what Neil said, I would say, like the last part of his statement about involving the younger generation and with the noise of the media and the social media, I would say, it is an old saying in India that we have to learn to think, we have to practice to think. And if the younger generation, all of us, start thinking, practice to think, we will think in the positive way. And I believe, as my previous speaker had spoken about empathy, and that empathy is a universal quality that permeates the world, it prevails. And the bad is a noise, and that is why we hear it. Whereas the good things are there, and that we see in our environment. So I'm sure the younger generation will eventually get what is good for them, and they will start thinking if they practice to think rather than being engulfed in what's going on. Then we will get a direction, and we will be able to do good to the society.
Lovely. You know, it strikes me as we were talking about this, I speak about this a lot, but you look at this device, this is perhaps the greatest social invention in history brought to us by the commercial world. And in a way, we have to ask ourselves, are we victims of change or are we agents of change? If you think about it, the job is not to receive social media and receive these amazing tools. It is to activate them and deploy them. We can talk to anybody and information to all knowledge since the beginning of time, contact anybody in the world. And the largest thing that the nonprofit sector has done with it is the Ice Bucket Challenge 10 years ago. And so we have to ask ourselves, is our job to simply be victims and receive this technology as it comes to us, or to use it to stimulate our imagination and create new possibilities with it? So I love that. Neha, am I seeing you with an urge to speak?
I had raised my hand
Good.
accidentally,
Good.
but I can
Speak.
speak to a couple points, and we'll just go backwards linearly. On the idea of the phone be in social media in general being like, are we victims or agents? I wanna maybe even bring up the chance that like in so many ways social media has made the world better. And that's something I want to poke to. It's like if we look at what's happening in Palestine right now, right? So many people are speaking up now because people who otherwise wouldn't have had a voice had a chance to, right? They got a smartphone, they got a chance to speak up.
Mhm.
If we speak to you have to also wonder like if that voice to the voiceless was given to people back in the 1930s, 1980s, in like even 2000s, in when the US invaded Iraq, all these things, like would we have not fought back against things that are wrong quicker? So I want to speak a little bit, like I did want to point on like social media isn't necessarily always bad. I do think that to a point, the worst of those stories always makes it to the top. I live in New York City. If you look at Fox News, I'm supposed to be going outside, getting stabbed, burned, shot every time I like commute to work. And that's not the case. I go outside, I see my neighbors, I say hello, and like social media is a tool, and in that tool we have to remember to add our own filter, that like the voices that are the most extreme are always going to be the loudest, because that's the
Mhm.
one that people are fighting out against. No one's going to make a story that gets a lot of views. Hey, I went out today to get milk, right? That's not something that anyone's really going to speak to. But in that same conversation that I believe I, I forgot where in the conversation it fell in, so forgive me. But I do think that at some point, like there's a lot of value in us separating the systems of those who are in power versus the normal humans, especially
Mhm.
when it comes to conversations of empathy, right? Because like, yeah, those in power don't really seem to have empathy, but that doesn't mean that we don't. That doesn't mean that the average humans don't. I've found a lot of benefit personally, just like mentally, being able to separate, like, all right, whatever's happening in the White House, someone should write a PhD thesis on that. But also remembering that, like, some of the greatest moments of kindness I have been ever shared is with people that I did not expect it from, like strangers on the street, people I'd been told to fear, like
Mhm.
incredible people who were incredibly kind, but I had been told to assume otherwise. So like people are not the systems. And going back to I think original point on youth about like passions and everything, can't help but feel a little bit of an echo on that conversation. I'm still in my 20s, so I feel like I can speak a little bit for the youth. Even though sometimes my brother says okay boomer to me and I'm like, okay, well, we'll sit down on that one for a little bit, but passion, I do 100% agree with Neil's point that you got to listen to your passion and you got to tone down everything else to find what voice and what's calling you. But like the call itself has always been there, right? People have always found reasons to do good even before and quietly. Wikipedia is an incredible example of people who are doing good for free, right? People spend like with PhD spend so much time writing um incredible articles for us.
Mhm.
uh Wikipedia, food kitchens, soup kitchens, all of that. Like you find your passion, but like passion comes from inside. You have to listen to that voice. But I don't think that voice that I don't think it's going to be any trouble for social media will not stop that voice from coming up. It might be harder to listen to, but what makes you feel like you have made a change in the world is always going to still be there.
Great. I've just got the note that we're about to lose our connect. So it has been a sincere blessing to be in your company. And Neil, I'm proud of you. I'm proud to call you friend. And I'm truly grateful this conversation. Any last thought, Neil, before we close?
No, I'm humbled. I'm excited. I'm energized. I learned a lot. Some of the question I will think more, particularly from the young person. I think this is a tough one. It's a lot to learn, but I think I'm grateful that we are building a community of Do More Good ambassadors. I think that's what excites me. I think you're all ambassadors, people who join who are ambassadors. And I was born optimist. So I think that's just the way my journey is, and I will keep doing it. And I'm grateful to all the panelists. I'm really superly humbled right now. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. And Mamta, I saw you bring in an even younger person into this conversation just very briefly with your daughter. Everyone, it's truly a blessing to be in your company. Thank you for your
Thank you,
time.
Bill. Thank you.
Cheers.